Well, please bear with me. I had about 10 minutes worth of comments. I've cut them down to 5, so things might be a little choppy. But, start out with, my name is Krowne. I'm the founder of IEHI Incorporated, which is a media company that publishes economic websites with a primary focus on the financial crisis. And while the term financial crisis now needs no introduction, when I started the first website of our network at the end of 2006, to speak of anything other than the sound fundamentals of our economy was heresy. Well, it's obvious now that we were ahead of the curve. So how did my scrappy little network of websites best most TV analysts, industry economists, Nobel laureate academics, and political advisors in predicting that there would be a gigantic crisis? Well, the reason can be basically summed up as the fact that we have unsound money. Today in the United States, we have a de facto regime of fiat money, and I stress de facto, which harks back to the exchange that just occurred here. But this means that our money is formally backed by nothing. It consists merely of abstract promises. For the currency itself, there's an implicit promise that the spending power of the notes will be kept roughly constant. Otherwise, they wouldn't be widely accepted. Yet no one can actually be held accountable if this turns out not to be the case. And something I want to stress is that this has not always or even usually been the case in history, even our own history. Fiat money was permanently introduced in the United States only in 1913. And that was when the Federal Reserve was created. Prior to this, other than briefly in times of war, U.S. money was only in the form of gold and silver coin or notes redeemable for same. As far as durable value, under the Federal Reserve fiat regime, the dollar has lost more than 95% of its value. By contrast, from the founding of the Republic until 1913, the dollar not only maintained, but actually gained noticeably in value. So much for implicit promises to maintain value. The Founding Fathers were actually very wary of this outcome. They had just experienced the disastrous continental fiat money, which was inflated away to almost nothing amidst the expenses of the Revolution. They also knew that distant despots could use fiat money to place into effective servitude the periphery and common citizens of a nation, especially those who were politically weakest. They did not want to create a new federal government that would assume this same despotic role. Because of this experience, and because they were learned men in general on the subject of political history, they made it explicit in the Constitution that no state shall make anything except gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, Article 1, Section 10. Nor could states coin their own money, with the establishment of coinage standards being a responsibility explicitly assigned to the federal government in Article 1, Section 8. States could not emit bills of credit in Article 1, Section 10, which is another definition of fiat money, essentially. And neither was this capability granted to the federal government. Counterfeiting was expressly to be punished by Congress, Article 1, Section 8, which shows that they were pretty concerned about it. So it's quite clear that the money of the United States must only be gold and silver. To this day, that is the force of the Constitution. But what we have today is a system of bills of credit and nothing else. Apologists for this system argue that it has been established by law, namely the Federal Reserve Act and other laws and codes establishing the Fed's emissions as legal tender. But all this law and code is, on the face of it, unconstitutional. Pointedly, while the Constitution establishes gold and silver only money and provides for federal borrowing, it does not permit that borrowing to become the foundation of money itself. That would be bills of credit. HB 430 simply provides for a return to the original constitutional requirements as concerns the state of Georgia, and these requirements still remain in place. Well, critics will doubtless argue that things have worked fine since 1913 on a pure fiat standard, so why change now? There are two main responses I have to that. The first is that this regime of pure fiat is actually relatively recent. Some people might be familiar that an event happened in 1971. President Nixon unilaterally closed the gold window. See, the U.S. dollar had been established as convertible to gold at a fixed rate by the Bretton Woods standard, which was put in place at the end of World War II. Well, the Treasury was being drained of gold by our trading partners because the U.S. was printing too many dollars, and this presented a problem to the Treasury. So Nixon unilaterally ended this agreement. This effectively ended the Bretton Woods system and thrust the world into a floating exchange regime, and it was only then that pure fiat money became the system of the United States and became the rule rather than the exception worldwide. It's 1971. So a sound backing for U.S. money was not removed all at once. It was done so quite gradually, over almost 60 years. The public was thus duped. We were boiled slowly, and like a proverbial frog, did not hop out of our pot as it sat on the fire. Indeed, by the 1970s, most people did not even know it was being removed in the Bretton Woods Agreement when Nixon took this action. So until 1971, one could actually argue on a legally viable basis that state debts payable in lawful money also satisfied the gold and silver clause of the Constitution. So the pure fiat regime is quite recent, within living memory of lawmakers today. And the second reason that the claim that our fiat system has been working fine does not hold up.
Wrap this up a little bit, we are running long in time here.
Okay. Is that it simply has not been performing well. Putting aside for a moment the issue of the erosion and purchasing power of the dollar, a monetary system based on limitless expansion of credit has been a complete disaster. Without the discipline of a monetary connection to a fixed commodity like gold or silver, money becomes mere credit, and credit expands as fast as it can. This induces bubbles, which very few protest because it is easier to participate in them than oppose them. And this includes even lawmakers who appreciate the public pleasure at the bubble and the increased tax revenues. So to conclude this pretty quickly here, so far from a regime of enlightened stability, there have been many such bubbles since the founding of the Fed. They've been gigantic and economy-wide. The root of all these problems is our bills of credit fiat money system, a de facto system, and the concomitant unrestrained government spending and private speculation. Such a system illegally and to our proven detriment remains the foundation of our monetary and banking system today. HB 430 allows Georgia to lead the way for our country in upholding the rule of law and restoring monetary stability in the intended constitutional fashion. It is only upon such a sound basis that sustainable prosperity can once again take root in America. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments today. The next person we have speaking is